Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening. Welcome to GetResponsLIVE. My name is Jeroen Heerschop. I'm hosting this show every week, every Thursday. And I'm very honored to have Reza Rad as my guest today. So good evening to you, Reza, because it's evening
Thank
at your
you.
end, right?
Thank you. Good morning to you. Good
Yeah.
evening. Good afternoon. Good
Yeah,
day to
exactly.
everyone.
Let us know if you're watching and what time zone you are. We always love to hear from you. We're broadcasting this live on LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you leave a comment there, then we'll see it popping up here. So it's always fun to see who's watching. What we're going to be doing today is Q&A. We've received a lot of questions. Thank you for that all. And we have selected the top 20. Oh, that's the dog. At your end. We have collected the top 20 questions and we have divided in a couple of topics. And we're going to be doing that in the next 45 minutes or something. So looking forward to it, Reza. And before we start, maybe I think a lot of people already know you. I know you from all the videos you make and the books you write. But maybe you can, for the people that don't know you yet, give a short introduction what you do.
Great, thank you. It's so good to be here with you and the audience. Thank you for the opportunity. So I'm Reza Rad. Sorry, I think I should bring that.
Yeah, no problem.
Just a second.
Yeah, no problem. That gives me the opportunity. I see that Martinci, I hope I pronounce your name correctly, is there. So great that you're watching via YouTube. And the topics, maybe I can already tell you a little bit. He's back.
Okay, back. Sorry about that.
You gave some food to the dog, or
Yes.
We were just discussing. Yeah, that's live, right? It's
yeah.
Doesn't matter.
This is a live dog.
Yeah. And so what are the main things you do, Reza?
Great. So I'm just an introduction. I'm Reza Rad. I'm working at RADACAD. If you do some work with Power BI, you may have came across our website. We have a blog. We have a YouTube channel which we publish, basically content on Power BI for a long time, and that's pretty much about me. I'm a consultant and trainer on Power BI as well. I do a lot of training, content generation for training, building the content, and we use that for training, and we do have an academy of video training as well. I'm also involved in the Affinity Conference, in-person conference in our region, and Power BI Summit, which is more like global virtual conference. That's pretty much about me.
Thank you. And that was a great event indeed. And there are some questions also about that later on, I saw. So great. So Jochem, also good that you're watching. Indeed, 10 o'clock in the Netherlands. Thank you for your... Shall we just go to the first topic? We have four topics. And the first topic is more around you as a person, because you already shared, you're doing a lot of things. And so we have called this section... Thank you. Your personal Power BI journey. You, Reza. And the first question we got was a very funny question, I think, to kick off. What kind of questions are triggering you? What questions make you happy that you get? And there's a question by Driek. Power BI or...
I like, first of all, I would like all the questions because I would understand different perspective. Even if I don't know the answer, I would understand something that I don't know, and I'll go and try to understand it. My days of becoming MVP starts with answering questions in MSDN forums, long time ago. That was like 12, 13, 14 years ago. I've been answering questions on forums. So I quite like to see all different types of questions. But the questions that I like most are those questions that I perhaps haven't wrote any blog post or video about it, so it gives me an idea so that I can go and start writing about it. But in general, I like all types of questions. Like some people sometimes come and say, well, I have a silly question, and like it might be very easy, but there is no silly question from my point of view. All questions are valid questions. I like them all.
So sometimes the most easy questions are the ones that trigger you the most. Okay, but why? How can I quickly answer that, and can I learn from that also to explain it in an easy way, etc. So
there's a saying that the silly question is the question that you don't ask. Not the question that you ask.
That's a good one. Good one. So great. Stephane also had a question about what and in Power BI, of course, there's a lot of options in there. But what part of Power BI, when you first started working with Power BI, gave you the most satisfaction? Now that I have this in control, I master this, but now I have a wow moment or whatever.
Perhaps there was a lot of moments like that. But I'm more like a computer language person. Like I like programming languages like C#, like Link, like F#, VB.NET, JavaScript. In Power BI, our languages mainly are Power Query M and DAX. So any moment that I actually work my way learning a specific trick in that language, in understanding how that language works, is a great moment for me. Like the very first time, for example, I learned how to create custom functions in Power Query like many years ago, or the very first time I learned how to use environment variables in Power Query, or in DAX situations that I learned to use how to use some functions to change the context, do some context transition, anything that actually helped me to understand that language better. Normally, that is my favorite spot. But
is there something at the moment that you are busy with mastering that you think, this is something I still need to learn or better or improve on? Or
I would say I still need to learn M and DAX. Like these are still languages that I'm still learning. Like even functions that you are using, like there might be like a lot of different variations of that. Like just as an example, a function as simple as list.aggregate. It's not actually a really like that simple, but it's a quite powerful function. That function comes with a lot of variations. I still have to figure out some of the variations that I can get it used. So
cool.
There are,
and if you found it out, then you share it, and that's what I really appreciate from you.
Normally when I find it out, I'll write about it in a blog. Sometimes it's a little bit complicated, so it comes as multiple parts blog.
That's okay. If you have questions around it, if you're watching this and you have questions related to this, feel free to ask them, because we can just put them in between. Or if you have a remark or something, that's perfectly fine. We prepared already some questions, but we're open for your questions also if you're watching this live. So let's go to the next question. Nicola is asking, and we have had him as a guest also in the past. Thank you for your question, Nicola. You create both blogs and videos, but now what is more challenging for you, and why? How do you make the choice also, maybe?
I was a blogger since, like, I don't know, when was that first blog? Perhaps like 2008 or something like that, 2007. But my first video perhaps came like 4 or 5 years ago. So I have more history in writing blogs. I'm more like a writer than like a video director, but I still enjoy these two. The part that is more challenging, I would say, is preparing the demo itself, because no matter you are doing the blog or the video, normally, like in my type of content, there's a demo involved in it. Mostly it's demo, even if it is not, let's say, something that I can demonstrate, even if it is something that is more like architectural view, I still need to prepare some slides, some kind of diagrams. So those parts are normally the part that takes time. Like if writing a blog takes 4 hours, like 3 hours of that is preparing that content. The last 1 hour is just the write-up. and I might record the video even in that 1 hour as well. So the writing and creating the video, and I'm saying that I'm not really, great at creating video. I'm not like Adam Saxton or or Patrick guy in a cube.
Yeah.
They create fantastic videos with like a lot of.
Do you do that? Do you yourself the recording and editing, or do you have someone helping out you?
Basically, there are not that much editing in my videos. It's like a screen recording, so quite easy. I use Camtasia for that. Yeah. I get some help to put something at the beginning and end and things like that, but that's pretty much it. So
I asked this question to Kais in the Cube also one time, and I asked, okay, do you have a whole team who's creating all this content? They said, no, it's only the two of us. We do it all with the two of us. So that was
and Adam has a great taste on video direction and things like that. I'm just simple on video creation. I'll just share the screen and record that.
So maybe as a follow-up question, and I think you mentioned it already a little bit before. This is from a guy called Jeroen. Don't know him, but how do you find new topics every time? So one of them is answering questions, maybe. What gives you inspiration for your topics?
Yeah, that is normally like channels that I get questions a lot from. I get ideas a lot from is first my customers. When I talk with them, I understand their challenges, their problems. That is one channel I get the question from. I get questions from comments in my blogs, in YouTube videos, LinkedIn, Twitter. Comments is the second one. I get a lot of good questions in there. Questions I get through my sessions, speaking, live sessions like this. Of course, that is another channel. Then I also look at community channels, forums, like community.powerbi.com, Microsoft forums. I'll have a look at there. I might not just go and respond it, but I'll have a look, browse what type of questions coming from.
Yeah. And do you have a list prepared with 50 topics that you still
want to cover? I actually have a backlog. I have a backlog saying that this is the topic, my estimate of how long the demo of this might take. If it is easy, it might let's say 2 hours, or sometimes it might be a day. So I list them, and it has like topics like this is DAX related, this is Power Query related, this is visualization related, and that is something. That list is something that actually me and Leila share together. We have this list, and then we go and pick one, and then start working on it.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds very good. And Stephane asked also the question. Because there are a lot of changes every day, it seems sometimes. On Power BI. I saw now the nice announcement about that you could finally do the constant lines with DAX, for example. That's being added, I think, in next release. We don't have it yet, but in Australia, New Zealand, maybe already there's already written about it. But how do you keep up to date with all the changes? What's your tip for people that are struggling with it, maybe?
I try to actually do something new, like at least every few days, because being in training and consulting, it happens a lot that we do one things using the same method. I try to do it in a little bit different method sometimes to get to understand also different ways of doing things. Reading the Power BI blog is also helpful because you'll get all updates over there. But then I'll have to practice it. I'll have to see how it is working. As MVPs will have access to earlier versions of Power BI Desktop, but that still comes really fast. I never have time to go.
But I am sometimes struggling with it also myself. Are you able to test every new element in the weeks after the release?
No.
Make a selection.
For me, sometimes it takes a bit of time to get to that specific thing.
To speed up.
But once I get to that specific thing, if it is something that I really enjoy, I might just work on it for, let's say, about a week, 2 weeks. Like I remember back in the days that aggregation was first announced in Power BI. I started working with it quite soon after that it announced, 4 or 5 days. Then I get quite interested on that, I created like 5-6 different blogs and videos about it. So when the topic is quite deep, you'll start digging deep into that, and that becomes really interesting, and you learn a lot from it, of course.
Yeah, no, cool tips. So maybe that's a nice bridge to the next part, part 2. Trends in Power BI, we have called this section. And we got a couple of questions about that also. This is a very high-level question from Bob, but maybe you can make your own, with your background, can answer it. So how would you describe your Power Platform strategy? Because we mostly will be talking about Power BI today, but of course it's part of the other tools forming the Power Platform. How do you do that at customers maybe, or what's your view on that? Where is it heading?
Like there are different aspects of answering that. One aspect is like how the, let's say, Power Platform in general would help would help businesses, customers around the world, and I see that as the message that Microsoft is trying to say as well, because you'll have data, your data should lead to an action. Just looking at the report, seeing that, for example, this is good, this is bad, is not going to do anything. You have to do an action after that. And Power Platform, other set of products such as Power Apps, Power Automate, they can help you with that. Like you can have an app that you go and inform someone to do this, or click on this button and do your action based on the data you had, and then evaluate what happens. Power Automate behind the scene to start this flow of things behind the scene, and like the whole thing can work together in a really nice way. However, what we see in real world is that a lot of organizations just focus on one aspect of it. Like they use Power Apps to create forms, data entry, and things like that, which is great, but still it is missing the data analytics part of it. Or some companies, organizations, they use data analytics, they use Power BI, but they don't have the after action of that. Now that I know what happened in the data, what I'm going to do, right?
So what you're saying is it should always be a joint exercise, that you try to utilize the power of all the Power Platform tools in one time. I recognize what you're
that
saying.
Would be ideal. It's not happening much, but that
organizations are not always ready for that, of course. And what I see mostly, that they start with Power BI, and then later on, let's look at this other
gradually
what they can do, right? Yeah. Do you
other...
also, in your projects and training, do you also focus more and more on Power Automate and apps, or are you really focusing on Power BI?
We only focus on Power BI mostly, but we have partners. So if someone, for example, now is looking into expanding into other areas of Power Platform, we'll introduce them to others who are expert on that.
So you've made the decision, let's focus on Power BI.
Yes,
Oh, okay. I appreciate it. Now, Dennis, I see that Dennis put a remark in there, so let's show it. Your videos are very informative. It's helped me out a couple of times. But how is it? Oh, that's a fun question. How is it like when you present a solution that is different from others, like, for example, KineCube? Did you have a different opinion maybe, or did that happen? Did you see that, or?
It might happen. I watch a lot of videos from KineCube, from a lot of others, of course. I haven't watched all of the videos, of course, so there might be some things that I do in a different way, they do in a different way as well. Like driving from one place to another place, there are always different routes you can take. Some parts of the routes everyone should pass because that's like the main route, but there are like a lot of branches you can go through. There are pros and cons. Like sometimes if you do it this way, it's easier, but it comes at a little bit of cost of performance. The other way, performance better, but might be longer development. I would say, like there are a lot of different approaches, and the beauty of community is that you get to see all different patterns, all different methods of
And
doing
you can
things.
learn. You can learn from each other. So thank you for your
Correct. Yes,
question, Dennis.
definitely.
So, is there something? And both Bob and Ben asked this same question. Maybe something you're missing in Power BI and that you would rather have added tomorrow to make your life even more fun in Power BI.
Yeah, there was a lot of features actually that I always like to have, and a lot of them are already in Power BI. That like Power BI team is quite great in adding things. But one of the things I've been asking them like ever since, like I think the time that Power Query came along, was the ability to run Power Query code from C#. I'm coming from a programmer background, so I like to be able to run Power Query, like just pure M script from C# and embed that into a program, like without doing any Power BI, anything. I like to have the ability to use that engine and that script to do the data transformation.
That's the programmer in you that says,
yeah, that's the programmer inside me. And it might not be, it might not be something that perhaps like 99% of Power BI users won't even use that kind of thing. But I like that.
That's your answer. So great. Let's move on because we have so many questions, and I do want to give everyone the possibility to have an answer. So you organized the Power BI Summit. You were already mentioning that, and you already announced the early bird. I think it was just finished, the early bird event. So it will be back next year. But can you tell us already maybe a little bit more, or what is now the stage that you're in? Are you already now busy with the agenda, for example, or how does that work?
So definitely we will have Power BI Summit 22. The dates are already announced.
When is it? When is it roughly?
7th of March to 11th. It's a week of 7th of March to 11th. We actually have checked that those dates are like some dates that is not school holidays in a lot of countries. It's not a specific holiday, so hopefully those days should be fine for most of the time zones, like different countries. Tickets are on sale at the moment. Like we had a super early bird that's finished. Early bird is now on, which is still like a good saving. Last year we had over 100 speakers, and we had you as well as many other speakers as well. Thank you for that. Without our speakers, we definitely wouldn't be able to put together that event. This year the plan is to have it even bigger. Fingers crossed. Let's see how it goes. We haven't open call for speakers yet, so we are working behind the scene on that. This will be open perhaps in the next few weeks. Once that is open, everyone is more than welcome to submit. You don't have to be an MVP. You don't have to be a Microsoft person to submit. If you just have an idea, start submitting there. It might be a great idea, especially for a conference like at this scale. Because we get a lot of experienced speakers. They come with a lot of expert level sessions, but what we need is all kind of sessions. Like we need also like beginner level sessions.
Exactly.
Like everyone is more than welcome to submit, and we'll go in through.
We'll definitely share it when it starts the call, and we'll share it also in our community. So great. Now looking forward to it, and it was very fun to do. Maybe this we can answer shortly. What Charticulator? I see it more and more also in my timeline popping up. I'm not sure whether you are already doing things with it, but what's your opinion? Ben asked. What do you think?
Charticulator is a fantastic thing. The first time I've seen that was actually in the MVP Summit in a couple of years back, or maybe it was 3 years back. It is a great thing. It's a product of Microsoft research team, and it is fantastic. You can build basically like whatever you want with that without writing a code. This is fantastic, but you need to know exactly in what order, in where exactly to click and drag things. Now Leila is actually our Charticulator expert. I just look at the charts that she builds. It is a fantastic thing. My opinion is that it helps a lot of organizations to build their own visuals the way that they want it. but they have to spend a little bit time to learn about it. It's not
there is
like
a learning curve. There is a learning curve, but you can get value out of it if you really want.
But the learning curve is not like learning a programming language. Like if you wanted to create custom visual with JavaScript and things like that, that was definitely a developer's job. But this is something everyone can do. They just need to spend time learning.
As a follow-up question, Ben also had when you're creating data stories, and I recognize what Ben is asking here. Okay, the interactive dashboard is nice, but maybe you want to add a story or pictures or whatever, and then people will maybe export it to a PowerPoint mostly, I think. There is an upcoming integration. I to be honest, I don't know exactly what it entails. I see it in the schedule somewhere later this year.
Yes.
Maybe you know more about it. You can.
Yeah, there are some news of something coming up. There was also some announcement of that in Business Application Summit that an integration with PowerPoint would come up. But still, I would like to see much better integration with that. Like long time ago, we had this export to PowerPoint, which is basically just creating PDF. But some of Microsoft partners actually created really nice integration. Like I don't really exactly remember the name of that partner, but they have add-ons on PowerPoint that you can actually bring
embed it.
Yes, embed your dashboard, which is a really nice way. So I think this is one of the areas that Microsoft needs to focus, and they are already focusing. So they have something in the pipeline. And
but it's funny to see that sometimes a third party creates a solution, and then Microsoft can hopefully integrate it also.
That is right. Yes.
Yeah, we see more examples. Okay, cool. Let's move on. So this next section is about implementation of Power BI in organizations. And Polke is asking for a colleague. How do you handle resistance in an organization on using a new tool, way of working in general? Hey? Probably you in projects also encounter that.
Yeah.
What's the most common thing you hear about Power BI, and how do you handle that?
That is always a challenge. We go to organization that they used Tableau, and they are now about to learn Power BI, or they use Excel. Now they are about to learn Power BI. They use any other tools. Now they are about to learn a totally new tool. That there is always a big resistance, and there are ways to reduce the fraction a little bit. Some demos, presentation. This is how you do that in your old tool. This is how we do it in the new tool. Showing some of the capabilities of the new tool, that is always helpful. And of course, there will be always resistance. The old way of doing things is not always the best way of doing things. Type of momentum needs to go through the organization. It requires a bit of cultural work through the entire organization, but you definitely need to have a executive sponsor for your project. If you are, let's say, just a business analyst in the big entire organization saying that I like Power BI, you'll need to find some people around it to build a community of I like Power BI, and then together. Yeah,
it's always better to, in the organization, have a couple of people spreading the word than you as an external consultant, I think.
Correct. Yes.
So create some enthusiasm. And it doesn't need to always be the highest level. It can also be someone who is influencing, or who's enthusiastic.
Correct.
So that's a nice question. So how do you mostly start when you're going to start on a new Power BI assignment? And I think that we have further on a similar question on that. I think it's this one. So when you create a new dashboard, where do you start?
I usually start with the big picture, because normally the type of Power BI work I'm involved with is more like advisory. Like someone just jump into a call with me for an hour or 2 hours. We'll talk about a specific problem. They come and say, well, I want to do this formula in DAX. This part doesn't work. But then I go back a little bit. I say, well, we'll look at that in a second. But first of all, let's look what you are trying to achieve, like what your user want to see, what your report visual is going to look like. And based on that, we might get back to solve that DAX question, or we might just say, well, this looks like more modeling issue. We need to change the design of your tables, and when we fix that, then automatically your calculation is going to work.
Yeah.
So more looking at the big picture.
Yeah, exactly. So that makes sense. And I was just wondering, it popped up in my mind. What if you have a customer who's doing now everything in Excel and says, "No, we want to watch at Power BI because maybe it will help us out also." How would you start? What would be your first next step when an organization asks that?
I would say that's a good start, but I would say still part of their things has to be done in Excel still. Like Excel, we use it for a lot of things. We don't use Excel just for, let's say, data analysis. The data analysis part of that, we can replace it with Power BI. But we also use Excel for planning, for changing variables, and like a big spreadsheet of data, changing these data and seeing how it is working. In Power BI, we have what if parameters and things like that, but it is not going to be at a scale of a whole table and changing everything, right? So I would, again, look at the requirement in details. Like we want to change Excel to Power BI, let's go to every specific spreadsheet, what you are doing in this spreadsheet. Let's see if this is good candidate to be done in Power BI, or you just keep it in Excel for a while.
Yeah, okay, fair. So, good. So, Driek also had a question about, you wrote an article about organization roles around data, and now that more and more people are using Power BI, one of the questions he had, the question was longer, but Driek, I took one question out of there. The data department, where should it be? Should it be a central department in your opinion, or should it be under finance or IT or strategy? What do you think?
Good question. I would say it's a combined, it's a hybrid department now. Back in old days, data department was basically like part of the IT, like BI department or whatever you might call it. It was part of the IT. It was totally separate from all other parts, which is what I mentioned in that article as well. And this, like whoever was in this department, they were skilled in building reports, analytics, but they didn't know anything about business at all. And that disconnect created a lot of problems, like bottleneck on this group. Now, the evolution of self-service saying that, well, you have to outsource part of this to different departments, to the HR department doing their HR analysis, to the sales department doing their sales analysis, and they don't have to be BI developers. They just need to do some analysis. Power BI is self-service. That is one of the good things about it. You don't expect them to go and write really complex DAX expressions, but at least they can do some visualizations and things like that. So you have a few like data analysts in each of the departments, but then you also have your central like data department, whatever you might call it, that this group is actually supporting those so that they can actually continue building their content with a golden data set or data flows and things like that. You can help them to maintain governance around it. So both are essential. You cannot say this centric one is not needed, because then you'll have a lot of silos. And you cannot say business analyst or data analyst in each department is not needed, because that is where the business understanding comes from.
What I like a lot, what I see more and more in organizations, that communities are created basically around a topic, right? And in this community, you have people who are more focused on that topic and that topic, and they help each other. They complement each other, right? Instead of working in silos.
That is right.
You have platform tools to connect people, or do an event, or share knowledge, or inspire, or I see more and more internal marketing happening. Also, correct, things they create, for example. So fun. Great question, Driek. So maybe a nice follow-up. I put the questions in a nice order, I think, because AI is also one of these topics. You have data scientists who are working on that. We see also that now AI is moving more to the self-service. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that people is it already mature enough? Are people ready for it to do it?
I think AI still needs a little bit more time. I'm not saying that AI functionalities are not mature enough. I'm saying the market is not ready for it yet. Like in Power BI, we have a lot of these like AI functionalities, talking with cognitive services, doing a lot of things. And they are fantastic. With many other Microsoft tool sets, we also have this integration with a lot of AI features. But the thing is that when we go to a customer, they don't know what their status of their data is right now. Like they cannot describe their data, let aside to predict what is happening or to prescribe what is going to be in the future, right? So those are the next steps. We have to first do this step as well, right? A lot of organizations are still in this step. We have some organizations at the moment towards AI, which is great, and these abilities in Power BI and a lot of other features are going to help them. But I think we still need a little bit more time in the market to get ready for those features. Microsoft and a lot of other vendors are investing a lot on AI, but the market is a little bit behind.
Yeah, I know. And I think that's the good order, right? To get people step by step, not do a large jump suddenly from working in Excel to AI and Power BI, but to go through the steps, just like you probably did. Yeah. So great. Now we're already at the final part. We have 4 questions left. I'm looking at the time. It's not too bad. We're doing okay. So this is more a section about really Power BI desktop building dashboards. I think we already covered one question of those. That's this one, I think. So we already covered that a little bit, starting a new dashboard. But maybe, maybe creating a dashboard. Maybe we can focus it more now on Power BI desktop. Where do you typically start?
I would start with the requirement and the existing data, basically with these two. Like if we are looking at a project level, what is the requirement? What data we've got? Is this data that we've got is supporting that requirement? Does it need to be transformed? Do we need to get more data? Do we need to change that requirement a little bit? So working on that a little bit. Based on that, we'll start to get data prepared in a shape, in our star schema model, then starting doing calculations on top of it, and then doing the visualization. And each of these steps will have like best practices to go
through. Do you already know? Because some people would say, I'm starting with a rough design, what information I want to see, and then start with the data and go through the steps you mentioned. Is that also what you do? That you make?
Yes.
That you determine the KPIs and the dimensions?
Yeah, not really. I mean, like a mock of what is going to be, but something like that, a mock-up of what we are going to achieve. Like we are going to have a KPI that shows this or things like that, and based on that, we are going to then look at the model. One of the things I've seen a lot happening is that people start not from the requirement. They start from what data they've got, and then they see what they can analyze, and then they see the requirement is not meeting that data, right? So they spend a lot of time to do like the analysis, but then they realize that this is not really what they are.
Yeah, and then you have to start over. And And what about if people have now an existing Excel report with a lot of information in there, and that's coming from 3 different sources, for example, financial system and a CRM and whatever. Do you then typically, if they ask for a dashboard, say, okay, let's first connect to that original sources, or do you in your project sometimes also choose to maybe first select the Excel as a source to have, for example, if people are not acquainted to dashboards at all, for example, or do you say no? Let's first always start with the data source to right away.
I would normally phase that in different phases. I would say, for example, phase 1, we might just get it from your Excel source, doing it like that. But this is with the understanding that if your Excel data source is not up to date, your report is not valid too. Once this is get validated, then let's bring that data from the source as a second phase. So it will come as a different phases, but it all depends on really how big the project is. If it is really a small work, if there's really a small spreadsheet to be converted to Power BI, it might altogether be just like a 1 week thing.
Clear.
Yeah.
I get a question on YouTube. I don't see your first name, sorry. But you have a new book.
Yes.
It's a very specific question. Is it readable in a rather small e-reader?
Yes, it should be, because it is in Kindle format, and even if you have phone or things like that, like you can adjust the font size. It's not
it's
actually
responsive. It's responsive.
Yes. So you can definitely adjust it for a small reader and things.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's just an in-between question. Why not? Thank you.
And by the way, that is a new book.
What's the name of your new book? What?
DAX, Power BI DAX Simplified.
All right. Oh.
Yeah, it has 60 different practices, so it's more like practical DAX. You learn it by different examples. A lot of that content comes from blogs and articles, of course, but organized in a way that starts from the basic, goes into more advanced scenarios.
Cool. No, cool. We'll check it out. Now question. Oh yeah. So yeah, great. So you will buy it. Dennis is also asking a question. Do you have a certain technique or method for collecting requirements?
So I would say now that's a good question. I answer it this way, that collecting requirement is not a technical task, right? For example, I'm a technical person. I'm a Power BI, let's say, consultant, expert, whatever you might call it, right? For example, I know how to do things in Power BI, but I'm not the right person to gather requirement. I know things, like I can talk with people that, okay, what is your requirement? Let's discuss about it. But this is normally a BA job. You need someone with a good business understanding. Like, for example, if I'm going to build a report for an airline system, right? I can talk with them, but I don't really know their business, right? I need to spend time to learn their business. A BA is someone who spends time to actually learn their business, learn how their business is going to work.
The language.
Airlines have a lot of different things. They have a lot of terminologies. So that person actually understands the business and talk with them in their business language. So that person actually can understand what the requirement is. And that person then talks with someone like me to convert that to a technical understanding, so that then you have a Power BI developer can implement it, right? Now, in small projects, we see like one person doing it all, right? But in big projects, this is not really going to work. You'll need a BA person. BA is an important role to understand that requirement. They have a list of questions to go. They'll have workshops.
So I was working at IBM, and then a manager always said, consultancy is not a science, it's an art. Maybe that's
a great one.
Great one, right? So thank you, Dennis, for the question.
Good question.
Let's move on to the last couple of questions. So what if you work on a dashboard, what are typical moves you always make that you maybe has advice for other people? First, always start doing this. Do you have one simple example, one of the things you always do?
I always try to do star schema model. There are, of course, like exceptions, things like that. I always try to avoid both directional relationship. I always try to look into how query folding is going to work behind the scene in my Power Query statement, because that might affect the refresh time of my Power Query. I always look into see if that particular query can be moved to data flow. In that case, I would gain the benefit of doing it in data flow. In doing the visualization, I always try to simplify things. This is one of the things that I've seen people, on the contrary, they try to overcomplicate it. which is not not a good practice. They try to put everything in one visual, everything in one page. So I try to simplify it to make it more understandable. I'll try to hide the columns, fields that is not needed to be in the visualization section. I try to delete the column and fields that are not going to be used in a report at all. So using it
now that's already Stephane. This is already a huge amount of great tips. Thank you. Martin, he sent me also his files, and we can't share them now, Martin. But the key question, I think, was that you have one single data set, and you already mentioned as one of your tips just now, create a data scheme, a star scheme, sorry. But what if you have, for example, one Excel sheet with 50 columns? Would you then do in Power Query create the different dimensional effect tables from that, or do you use DAX also for that? What is your way of working?
I normally use Power Query for doing any data preparation in building my tables and things like that. The reason for that is that then I can actually save it as data flow, and then I can have another data set getting data from the same tables. If I do that all in one Power BI file, then my other Power BI file, if I'm going to use that, like few of these tables, I might need to replicate it. So Power Query is definitely the place to do your data transformations. There are exceptions though, like for example, if I'm doing role-playing dimension, like for example, I have in my fact table, I have order date, ship date, due date, things like that. They are all copies of the date table. Creating these copies, I would do that in DAX, a calculated table which is equal to that table. The reason is that then I don't need to refresh that again, because if I do that in Power Query, there is a refresh overload. So if it is just mere copy or things like that, I would do that in Power Query in DAX.
Yeah,
but
I think Martin. Yeah, I think Martin's example is more the second case. So then maybe DAX would be better. Okay, interesting.
And I have an article explaining that too. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You have. Okay. Now we'll put it maybe in the comments after the session where that article is, Martin.
That's good.
Jochem also. Let's see. Try to do it in data flow, so not all Power queries can be done. Oh, I think he's referring to. You say I try to do it in data flow.
Yes.
Something that it is not possible to do it in data flow.
Yeah, there are very few limitations.
Yeah.
I would say different way of doing things in data flow than doing it in Power Query in Power BI. Like, for example, a function such as web.browserContent is one of the functions we use in Power BI, and that is when you go get data from web page and it brings those
scraping
nice
kind
view, things like that. That doesn't work the same way in data flow, but you can use web.contents and somehow convert it to the same thing, right? So there are a few scenarios like that. The more
do you see it moving closer and closer to each other?
Yes, they are not
the data
that
flow
much
to get
different.
it.
Yeah, they are not that much different, very close to each other. Okay. But the more limitation, I would say, comes from not having the premium license. Because if you don't have premium license in Power BI, your data flows are a little bit limited. If you, for example, reference from another query and you want to still use that query, you want to create like an aggregated query, this will become computed entity. Computed entity is a premium feature, right? So I would say
I found very annoying a year ago or something when I tried it out for the first time. That's why.
Yes.
So
now with the premium per user, that might be a little bit better. But
exactly. It's nice that the premium per user is there now, indeed.
Yes.
So so Jochem agrees. So thank you. I think we're almost at the last question. Let's see. We have 2 questions left, and
yes.
So parameters, they are very handy to use in Power BI. What are use cases that you use them for, Stephane wonders?
Right. So there are actually 2 types of parameters in Power BI: the what if parameters, or what we call it as DAX parameters, or Power Query parameters. Power Query parameters are good for your data transformation things. They are not for developer. For example, I can use them to loop through different pages in a website, right? do some web scrolling, go through different pages, fetch all those information. And this might not be all pages. This might be, let's say, going through a table in a lot of different servers. The same table, but in a lot of different servers, populating all of those information, combining them together. This is something you can do with Power Query functions and Power Query parameters and custom functions together. So it's not for user. On the other hand side, what if the parameter that you create in the modeling tab in Power BI, those are for user. Like, for example, you wrote a calculation, this is rolling 12 months and things like that, and then you want the user to change this rolling 12 months to rolling 6 months, rolling 5 months, rolling 4 months. You want to give them the ability to adjust it using a slider or something like that. That is normally for the user. And when you understand these two, you'll use them quite in a nice situation. They can work quite well.
Adds interactivity. And I think we shortly discussed it when we were discussing the top 5 improvements of July a couple of weeks ago. There's also a hybrid form, right? Which I didn't try out yet, to be honest, but where you can do a DAX parameter to influence the Power Query parameter, right?
It might be the dynamic M parameters you are talking about.
Yeah, that I'm talking about.
Yes.
Is that something you see a use case for, or?
Those are for very specific use case scenarios for direct query type of data sources. Chris Webb actually has quite a nice set of blogs about dynamic M queries. Yeah, they are quite helpful for example, changing specific things in the query from the user side of things. But
interesting to check it out, maybe also
definitely
for people who are watching this. So final, sorry, I'm mistaken. We have now 2 questions left. No, okay, doesn't matter. Do you, when you're navigating through the pages, I like this question also from Stephane. Would you rather use bookmarks or just use the standard page navigation? What's your? Is there a tipping point when you would make another decision?
Yeah, like I personally, I use standard page navigation, but we don't expect users to know every page, like what is going to happen in every page. So having buttons with some descriptions under those buttons, sometimes with icons, those are really helpful. So I would definitely encourage everyone to look into that, to create like some really nice navigation in your report. That page navigation is there, but you can make it better. You can have some descriptions under each button saying that go to this page to look at this, go to this page to look at that, and things like that. And that definitely, like previously it was done only through bookmarks and then setting the action of those buttons to bookmarks, but now we have buttons with the action of page navigation as well. So you don't even need to create bookmarks. You'll just create the button, you set it to page navigation.
Yeah, it's become easier. All right, and it depends also on the public, of course, who's using it. Now, my moderator is already pushing me because we're nearing the hour, but this is the last question, really. So, what are some common mistakes you see when you being asked by a customer, can you help us out because we need help on this Power BI? What are do you have a nice anecdote or what you see that people often, because they're learning, that they make a mistake in?
I see mistakes actually there are a lot of different phases on Power BI. Like I see mistakes on, for example, visualization side with overcomplicating. Putting a lot of things in one visual. That's not good. Like in modeling, I see a lot of people just combining everything in one table, a huge, big table, and slicing and dicing things on it. Or sometimes they start to like spread everything like separately. Every column is a table itself, right? That is not good. Not that one, not this one, right? So you have to find the right niche, which is something similar to a star schema and things like that. Another mistake I see is that people try to do data transformation using DAX. DAX is not for that. DAX, like you may write, like, let's say, 10 lines of DAX expressions, full lines, to do something that you could do with a simple pivot in Power Query, right? So everything is for its own purpose. So finding
Yeah.
the right place.
I'm thinking about we had Rut Martinez last year in a similar Q&A session, which was also very nice, and she was also saying I think that Power Query should have more love, because it's a lot about ducks and new
Correct,
functions
yes.
and examples and articles, but a lot of that can be done better maybe in Power Query.
Correct, yes.
People need to be aware of that more.
Yeah, that, because it is behind the scene, people don't see it. Actually, it's just
exactly.
in front of.
Yeah, it's in the back end. Yeah, so now, great. Reza, I really appreciate your time in your evening to do this with us. I'm very honored that you wanted to do this, and I thank you all again for the questions, because without questions, it would have been a short session. But so I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And
Thanks for
you're always welcome to come back, of course, next year if you have time. And now we'll definitely follow you also in everything you do. So later today we are again live indeed. We have 2 sessions today. Wow, on our regular time at 4 o'clock, we are talking with Paul Lucassen about geospatial visuals. Now, he will explain what it is. And it has something to do with visualization of distances and areas, and not the bubbles in the chart, but much more fun things you can do in Power BI also. So I'm looking forward to that also. So see you in 5 hours. And we'll have another session. So thank you again, Reza. Have a nice evening. And
thank you for the opportunity, and thanks everyone for joining.
Yes. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.